And good evening to all of you on the UK side of the Atlantic, and good afternoon to all of us here in the States. Welcome to the latest edition of the Daily Gooner Pod. Joining you from Texas, very sunny Texas. I'm Raphael, and joining us from London, our regulars, Sam. Welcome back. So much good things to discuss. Right? And of course, MJ, who's filling the seat ably. It's like made it his own. Welcome back.
How's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. So much to discuss. Let's dive in. I don't need to do a big wind up. Arsenal have won two matches. These were kind of the litmus tests, going after the big start. We were told. I heard from all my friends here in the States. Well, you lost to United. Who have you beaten? Right. Well, I guess you haven't beaten anybody, and I either we have to admit they've now beaten somebody, or Spurs and Liverpool are nobodies. But we'll parse that one. But the first one, let's go back a week to the first one. Arsenal, MJ, tidy work. I think I'm not surprised. We were all very bullish on them going into the Spurs match. Even I think I was optimistic, but I think I was surprised at just the sheer level of dominance in that match.
Yeah, I think so. I think the result and the performance went exactly how a lot of us imagined Tottenham were going to come and play deep and lose possession. I was amazed by how deep Spurs themselves were playing, especially with Bentancur and Højbjerg pretty much 5 yards behind their average sort of position. But the performance itself, it was kind of a mirror of the home fixtures that we've had over the last few years. I think it's I don't know when Spurs, I think the last time Spurs beat us at the Emirates was probably 3-2 when Cesc Gnabry scored. That's probably the last time that I can think of. Maybe before that 4-4. But I think the first half, it started exactly how we normally have started this season, on the front foot. And I think, as Odegaard said in one of the interviews, I can't remember what broadcast channel he was interviewing, but he was saying how they were practicing the movement of trying to get the ball to Partey or someone who was free on the edge of the box, because they were expecting the Spurs players to be so deep. And I think they were so deep to the point where Partey had that yard of space to knock off his shot. And if there's a game where he's going to get a shot on target, it's probably this is the one where he made it count. So that was a good plus from that point of view. And I think there was probably just a 10-minute spell in the first half where it was just getting a little bit nervy after the Gabriel tackle in the penalty box for their equaliser. But we got into the half-time, and second half, it was back to sort of being on the front foot and a little bit more control. And I think over the two games with Liverpool and Spurs, if you're comparing the second halves of the first 4 to 5 games to these two games, the second half performances of these games have been far better than maybe that we were talking about in the first 4 league games, where we maybe surrendered a bit of control, possession, because that was kind of the next step for the team. How do we make the second half better? How do we stop conceding the goals and the shots? But in Spurs' second half, despite the red card, the result was always going to go our way. And it was the timing of the Jesus goal that probably helped us along the way. The red card doesn't change anything at all, even if there was 11 men for Spurs. But it was, I think the front line, we've all been saying, if Spurs face a good team that's actually taking their chances, they will get punished. And we were probably the first team. Yeah, we are the first team out of everyone they faced. Even in the Brighton game, they were conceding loads of chances the other night. But the goals that Brighton have been scoring didn't seem to materialise. But it went exactly as planned, the Spurs game for us.
Sam, I always want to poke this at you, although you can take it any direction you want. But, we've seen with Thomas Partey, we've long discussed, he's a Rolls Royce in the middle of the pitch. He handles it. So, but very erratic, to put it politely, around the goal. Anything on his foot, he looked like an NFL kicker. Everything was winding up 20 rows up in the stands behind the goal. It seems Mohamed El-Neni's out. We always joked about him. He either scores a screamer or he doesn't score at all. It's like he lent his boots to Thomas Partey this time. There it was, brilliant goal, just stupendous. Is this? Yeah. I'll talk about Mikel changing everybody, but this is just an aspect of yet another player's game that suddenly materializes as the club is ascending together.
Yeah, I think with Partey, obviously we know how well he is in the middle of the pitch, how well he can basically control the midfield on his very own. I think that where we have lacked with him is that shooting in and around the box, and the way that he come onto that ball was inch perfect in every aspect, and the technical ability of that was superb. Uh, I think that with him, if he's able to contribute, say, 5 to 7 goals across the course of the season, that's going to be brilliant for us. But likewise, as well, you've got to think with Granit Xhaka, he's now starting to add goals into his game as well. So if we're now adding goals in midfield, and these two are going to be contributing, that's going to be massive for us moving forward into the season. Now, I think against Spurs as well, Partey was able to come up another 5 yards. What MJ was saying with Spurs and their average starting position being so deep, he was able to walk onto things, onto shots like that. So I think that given their lack of attacking instinct, Spurs, I think we took the initiative in terms of going, okay, if you're not going to come onto us, we're really going to step onto you and really pin you back, and that allows people like Partey, Xhaka to take up a more advanced position and be able to have shots on goal. So for me, it was smart from us. But what I also liked in the second half of this game, where we had five in attack to start off with, we was picking them apart in some aspects. But then second half, what I noticed is that we added Ben White on the overlaps, and that really opened them up to give us more in that attacking area, and they just couldn't handle it basically. So yeah, from an Arsenal's point of view, North London's red again, and it was stupidly enjoyable.
Hmm.
You brought up something to me when you were talking about Partey and his form. Made me think back to Saliba's goal that he scored off it was the perfect shot, similar, but with his left foot into the far corner. And we talked last pod about how effective they've gotten off corners. You think with headers and volleys across and finishing with the head, but seeing these guys, they look like free kick experts, both of them. We don't expect that from either one of them. Is that just another aspect? I mean, I'm fishing for an idea here, but just another aspect of this improvement from set piece. It's almost like a set piece. It's from open play in both cases, but they look like expert set pieces from people you don't expect.
Yeah, and I think with that is that that comes from Mikel. It comes from for the set pieces. I think his name's Jova, the set piece expert.
Yeah.
In regards to um the open play aspect of it, that's really got to come down to Mikel, because he would have drilled that scenario multiple times in training, and for us to really come onto them, it's like, okay, second string, sit deep, whoever's playing, play as you would play during that game, so that you are in game situations. So for us, we probably run through that 100 times on the training pitch, so that we're able to capitalize on that situation, which thankfully we did. But also on set pieces, you look at us compared to our set pieces last year, it's night and day.
Mm-hmm.
And where we've added height with Saliba in there as well, he's always a menace. And you think about the areas where we put the ball into, it's always near enough, just set outside the 6 yard box. So we've got the bodies in there. We're really trying to make things happen. But then we also have got, I think it's about 2 or 3 players around the edge of the box for the breakdown. So we're more or less covered if things break down, but also it's that second ball aspect. We're ready, waiting. We'll either have a shot or we'll recycle play so that we're able to set and go again and keep that constant pressure. And it's testament to the squad that we've got now, because they're really, really taking on the ideas. And I think I said this last year on the pod. With this team, every year it's going to grow, and it's going to grow scarily, because you think players like Saka and now Saliba, Smith Rowe when he's there, Martinelli, they're all getting that experience. They're all getting bigger. They're all getting their men's body. They're all having that extra year experience, and it's something that is going to really help us in certain situations. So it's really pleasing to see, and I think that we will see a real challenge to City.
Yeah.
Go ahead, MJ, if you want to jump in. It seems like you had something, but I was going to throw you a question.
No, go for it.
Ripping on what Sam was saying, that this is a physical club, and it's a big club, and we look at names. We'll get to this later in the pod. Names are starting to emerge of possible targets for the January window or next summer, and they all fit a physical profile. These are all players who are 6 foot, 6'2", solid. And Sam put his finger in another element. These guys, in year 2 of this, their bodies are just filled out. They could play. They look like NFL safeties, NFL corners. Their cores are strong. We talked earlier in the season how hard it is to knock Gabriels, Gabby, and Jesus off the ball. They're just impossible to dispossess, because they've got so much power in their hips and in their legs. That's just more of the change of the club. This is, we're not used to this. This is Arsenal that's supposed to be, in the Wenger days, bully them, push them, kick them. We saw it a little bit in United, tried it, and I think that was more a mental failing on Arsenal's part than a physical part. But nobody's bullying them anymore.
No, it'd be interesting to see what. This was something I was trying to explore, the average height and size of all the other clubs, maybe in the top 6 in comparison to us. But definitely a lot bigger now, and with the addition of Saliba, I think that's in the last 2 years. I think that average height has definitely increased. Wenger used to be labelled as signing players that are lightweight and nimble, but Mikel Arteta's signing players that've got that strength alongside it. Every time Bukayo Saka or Gabriel Martinelli, you have confidence that they're going to shield the ball. If they're not going to be able to go clean through and they're jostling 50-50 with another player, you just have that confidence that they are going to be able to carry the ball and handle the ball even under pressure. I think Martinelli had a really good example where in the second half against Liverpool especially, where I think it was either Gabriel or Ramsdale, they booted it up. Matip won it first, but Martinelli snuck in and just used his own strength to steal the ball away. But these guys, they're really built with their own core, and there's probably something in it in the conditioning team, the way looking after these players, where the players that are nimbler, more smaller frame, and your Sakas and Martinellis and Jesus's, they're probably working on how they can use their bodies to protect the ball if we're going to lose it. Because guys like Partey, Saliba, and Gabriel Magalhaes, they've already got the natural physique, so they'll be better suited. They don't need that much coaching. But the other guys that have got the balance, they can add in strength in different ways. It'll be more in their dribble, and maybe when they're going to be more under pressure. Especially if Saka is getting double teamed up, he's going to need to use all the strength that he can find going forward. But it's a really, this is a much more physical team, and I don't feel, back in the day, you're sort of wondering how you're going to match up when the intensity is up, but we're adding the intensity plus the strength, plus the speed and everything on top of that. So we're really well suited now going into this season. So I really like what I see.
Sam, another point raised here that I'll bring back to you, talking about Saka. He had 2 goals. We'll get to Liverpool in a minute, but he has 3 goals. He's got good numbers. But he's not a guy who you really judge looking at a statistical page. You have to watch him week to week. But what it was clear these last 2 weeks, especially against Spurs, every time he got the ball in his wing, a second defender came. He's drawing double teams. And he's using that to just open up. That seems to be a game plan going forward that we're starting to see opponents. They've decided he's just too dangerous to leave alone. And that's creating all kinds of opportunities for all the other players in the attack.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we saw that last year. I remember there was that image, I think it might have been away to Man City, and there was about 4 or 5 just swarming around him and as he's bearing down onto their box. But I think now people have really clocked onto his talent and how much of a threat he poses for them. I know that we've discussed on the pod previously about he needs to have a bit more variation to his play. And I think that we're seeing a lot more to that this year. I think Erdegaard helps him a lot on that side of the pitch as well, because you notice when he gets doubled up on, Erdegaard's instantly over there to try and offer an alternative out. And then also with Ben White playing as the right back, Ben gets up on on his shoulder to either give the overlap or he would drop off to give him another option. So you're now drawing what 3, maybe 4 players across. So when that happens, if we want to have a big switch, we're then leaving Martinelli one on one with their fullback. So it as you say, it does give us a lot of options, or we bring it back into the middle of the pitch so that there's more space for our midfielders to work in. That in turn gives Jesus or Eddie when he's up there more space to operate in and really attack people 1v1. And it's one of these things where we've been saying when it clicks, it's really gonna click. And you see this season, it's starting to click. And I still don't think it's 100% there yet. I would
I
probably say it's
agree.
about
Yeah.
85%. And as soon as it reaches that 90, 95, 100%, somebody's getting slapped 8-9-0. And
Well,
it's gonna happen this season.
we saw stretches of it, I think, coming out of the halftime against Liverpool. I think when they equalized at 2, I remember thinking they're so lucky. I mean, Arsenal probably, as you said, if they'd been just a little bit on, they were all over, swarmed them, and could have had a third or even a fourth goal. And then that didn't phase them. I'm kind of jumping games or mixing games here, but after the equalizer, they went right back to swarming them. So that snap, that explosion you're talking about, I think it's about that far away, and they're just ruthless now. MJ, you can take that one.
There's no sort of fear. I think it's okay. Yeah, I guess we're seeing the signs from all of these games where when we're getting pegged back by an equalizer, or if the other team have gone ahead. I've not been to many games, but the games that I've been to this season, as soon as we've conceded, the fans have been clapping at kickoff or clapping straight away. I'm not sure if that's something that's new or that's something that's been there before, but I think with that and the mentality change, there seems to be no fear. We just go back again to the other side, and we know that we've got the quality to go back to the other end and hurt them. But it's that intensity, and I think that's what Mikel has been instilling for the last year or so, is that sort of no fear. You guys are dangerous. They know you're dangerous, and you go back against them. Especially in the second half against Liverpool, we definitely outworked Liverpool and the ground covered. I don't know what the ground covered stats are, but if you're going to outrun Liverpool, you tend to win the game. But the second half, we just went straight back in both goals, just go straight back into them. But it's an intensity and lack of fear in the side now.
That goes all the way through. I mean, let's go back to Spurs. I want to give that one up so quickly because that was such a savory game. But Sam, let's talk about arguably the most improved player, the most transformed player. Let's say that, because that's a topic I want to bring up. But all the players that have improved this year, there are a lot of them, but maybe the most transformed player. Let's go to Granit Xhaka and his. There's that fearlessness in that third goal. I mean, where the Spurs were down a man, but he and Martinelli worked out perfect, crisscross. He's got his back to the ball. Martinelli goes across his face, gives him the ball. He goes the opposite direction. He sees an opening in the box, and it's like, well, he looked like a seasoned striker. Just attacked Lloris, wrong-footed him, cold, again, ruthless goal to put a dagger in that match.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think with Granit, he's adding goals to his game now, and I think that Ryan Ryan would love this as well to speak on this topic. Because with Granit Xhaka over the number of managers that we've had, he's always been one of the first names on the team sheet. Obviously, he had his well documented issues with the club and throwing the armband down, but he's really come back from that. And again, it's testament to Mikel, because he's ultimately now found the right position for Granit and really unlocked his key qualities. Because we always spoke about Granit Xhaka and saying we need to cover his flaws, we need to adapt the system around him to help him flourish. But realistically, the system, it's not hiding any flaws. It's just a matter of fact that he's now playing in the position of which we wanted. This is the Granit Xhaka we bought from Gladbach. So people were saying, "Oh, he's a defensive midfielder." He has never been a defensive midfielder. He's more of a box-to-box midfielder, and this is what we are really seeing from him. He's adding the goals. He's adding assists. Like, even if it's not the assist, it's the pre-assist, and him having the leadership, the unofficial captain, so to speak, and being the vice captain, he's really given us so much on that pitch. And even if things aren't going the right way, he's the first one saying, "Come on, guys, get round this, let's do this," and then really getting the team up for it. And even when we score, something that I've noticed we're seeing more and more this season, as soon as we score, all the players are there in the huddle. They take about a minute to talk, say what needs to improve, crack on with it, and then you see that improvement in the space of the next 5 minutes. So with him, he is so vital for us right now. And I know that we spoke on the pod over the summer saying, do we need a replacement? That's the question going into
We weren't
January.
alone. I'm guess I'll just take some solace in that. Right, we were all guilty, I think, in that respect. But yeah, just another player, and you talked on it too. He's the unofficial captain, but he's a captain. He's like a co-captain. He's the ghost captain. Call him whatever you want. Because after that first goal against Spurs, he brought that whole team together and said, don't be careful not to let down. We've seen this time and again with the club. They score in seasons past. They'd score and then concede something almost immediately, and just reminding them, like, keep your composure. This is we're early in the match, and it's almost like having two Xhakas now, if you can roll with that.
There's a good balance between Odegaard and Xhaka. I think Odegaard's the captain on paper, but they're both captains in their own different ways, and they've got a really good balance on the pitch. With Odegaard, he's the captain through his physical performance, and Granit Xhaka is the captain in his own sort of verbal skill in that sort of sense. But they're both also having an influence in their own ways. But he's always been like that. Even when he was a captain for us. I'm not sure how long he was a captain for us, but it's a really good story with Granit Xhaka now, and I said it on last week's pod. Oh, sorry, the one before that, the last show that we did. That if we can fast forward a couple of years or 3 years, we could be looking at Granit Xhaka as a sort of a milestone in history of Mikel Arteta's period or during his reign. Like, Granit Xhaka is one of the main men that Mikel kept on, and he was the one that's part of whatever success that this club has. Who knows what that's going to look like in a couple of years, but he is looking really irreplaceable. So now we're thinking, okay, what is the weakness in the current side now? Where can we improve? There's probably cover needed in Xhaka's position, but then I think you would think Sambi Lokonga, and we've spoken about that, we think he's probably the next one in line to be pushed higher up. But the Premier League appearances that Sambi's had so far is as a deep player. But he's looking really irreplaceable at the moment.
I want to say something about that too, and this goes to Arteta, the fact that they're playing. It's a cliche, but they're kind of playing with one brain. And that the fact that, as you said, there's two captains, one wears the armband, but each of them has been given license to speak up. You know, if Xhaka wants to command something, it's fine. Odegaard's not going to feel put out by it. Odegaard can do his thing. He's the captain, named captain, chosen captain, and Xhaka certainly is fine with that. So it's that selflessness. It's strange. It's like he has two captains, and it's almost like he has 11 captains. And I think that goes to the mindset that Arteta's trying to put in there. I mean, Xhaka's speaking it, but it all seemed like it was a sermon that didn't need to be given. Everybody kind of knew, like, yes, you know, everybody mentally is so locked in right now. And again, just gift after gift from this club. But that's my 2 cents. But let me actually give you a topic to kick around. I think I was talking about this with some other people that we just talked about the transformation of Xhaka, but we've also talked about the fact that if we look at the lineup from last year to this year, there really isn't that much turnover. There are two significant additions, Jesus and Saliba, but you know there are at least 4 players, and you might put Odegaard in that category too as a fifth. But Ben White has taken a giant move to right back and taken a giant step forward. Both of the wingers, you know, we talked last year about Saka breaking out but needing to improve in his finishing, and it seems like his attack has really taken a leap. Martinelli is now just, there's nobody he can't, you know, he put Trent Alexander-Arnold on the bench at halftime. Now, is arguably might have been injured, but in the match before then, he was still giving Alexander-Arnold a hard time and getting around him. And then of course there's Xhaka, who's just a completely different player in terms. So as you look at it, it's almost like we have 6 new players on the pitch, and certainly, you know, it's a pleasant surprise. But we talk about the value of the club. You know, everybody wants to go out and play Football Manager, and let's bring in this guy, and let's bring in that guy, and let's bring in that guy. And Arsenal has a wealth of new players with only 2.
I think I was at a dinner table with my friends a few months ago. I think I can't remember what period. I think it might have been April, and we were chatting about Arsenal, and they were posing the question to me how far Arsenal are away from the title challenge. And back then, I thought there were signs that we were maybe only a couple of players from here to like here. The title was probably up there somewhere, but the jump between here to there wasn't that far off. And they weren't quite sure why I felt that. And I think it's only because it's the plan that Edu and Mikel and the club have been instilling with profile of players they've been signing. If we were going a year forward, you can see the development of a lot of those players that you've just mentioned there, the Martinellis, the Whites. There's a reason why Ben White was signed a year ago. There's a reason why Saka and Martinelli and maybe Emil Smith-Rowe have been integrated. I think Emil's quite unlucky with his injuries, but Martinelli has taken his chances that have come in his way, and he's really accelerated with the time that he's had. But a lot of the guys are a year older, a year better. And I said it a couple of times, I think the hurt against Spurs and Newcastle towards the end of the season, that would have been part of that development, that getting that hurt in their system and out of their system. So they know what it's like to really lose a really good opportunity. They're not having to face that for the first time. Maybe there's whatever it is that we're in this year, whatever race we're in, maybe there will be some hurt there. But that core of players have already experienced losing it at a really crucial stage of the season. So part of their physical development, but also the mental side of what that could bring. So it's just the same group of players with a bit of experience added in. And Jesus and Zinchenko, they're very good signings to bring in, even if Zinchenko hasn't played very much. But if you see all the clips on Twitter of him off the pitch, he's celebrating every goal like he's been one of us for years. So it's just the influence as well that these guys are bringing in. So it's not that far off, as Sam was saying. Really not that far off. So it'll be interesting to see what targets are lined up and who would come into this current 11. That's an interesting debate to have, see who comes in.
Can this get even better? I mean, we talked at the beginning, Sam, that Partey added this shot. And hopefully that he's got a taste of it now and he'll do that more. Xhaka's clearly taken to that. He's got a couple of goals under his belt, different kinds of goals, scoring scoring far, scoring near, attacking in the box. Almost, I remember early in the run, almost scored in the back post with a header that he just blasted it off the upper of the goalpost. Everybody's in on this.
Yeah, I think in terms of what we're doing is, again, it's just testament to the manager and the way that we want to play. Like as you say, everybody is getting in on this, and this is something that we need if we want to challenge for a title. Really, like we need everybody to contribute to the goals. We need our depth for players coming off the bench to be able to contribute assists and goals. So Eddie coming off the bench, his goal, I think it was against Clint. The technical ability of that, at the speed that the rebound came, and it's then you get people like we can rest Odegaard and put Fabio Vieira in, and just to touch on the point with MJ is saying about the players that we brought in with Jesus Shinchenko. We shouldn't forget about Vieira as well, because remember, Porto's just won the division last season. So I think adding winners into this club over the summer, that then gives this squad, and I think Ramsdale's touched on it in a couple of his interviews that he's given, saying these winners have come in with a different attitude to what the core already had, and it's given everybody that little bit more. And to have that winning mentality, we've said it for years at Arsenal when we was bringing in like the Aubameyangs and people like that. It's like, yeah, it's all well and good having big egos come in, but are they really going to transcend onto this squad? Say, no, guys, we're going wrong in these moments. This is what we need to do. Because again, going back to like the little huddles and things like that after we score, or when things are breaking play, you see Jesus pulling people and saying, "This is what needs to happen." So as you say, everybody getting in on it and having these winners in this club now, and having the depth that we've got to be able to rest key players. And realistically, you look at the teams. Do we really miss the key players when we bring in others? It's literally like for like now, and that's something. If we had that last year, we would have been laughing for top 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been an issue. It wouldn't have been a sweat.
No, exactly that.
I think that's a fair, absolutely fair.
But even the 11 that was that they're on a form last season, I feel that would have just edged top 4 if Partey, Tierney, and my memory, forgive me there, but I think even if those guys were still fit, we probably just about make top 4. Who knows?
But like I said, up front, that's a significant difference. So
yeah,
don't get me started on him.
And because of that, this is the lack of depth we're talking about. When we were playing Spurs last year, Cedric was starting at right back rather than Ben White, and Lacazette starting at striker rather than Jesus, and just those two alone. And they're Saliba's not here. It's a different animal. So Xhaka's got to play a completely different role from this is not the same team. It's not even close to the same team. I think that's what week by week, I continue to be amazed that gap seems to expand. And not just from that season to this season, but from week 1 of this season to week now 9 of this season. The club just keeps getting better and better and better. And
I think Ben White's a part of that. He's just one of the few guys that's really developed this season. But he keeps amazing me the more I watch him. If you compare the first 3 games of his right back position to how he's more adventurous now in the last 3 games, let's say, he's far more comfortable. And I always forget that he's known to not be a massive fan of football. He just treats it like a job. So if he's been given a role, he'll just figure out the way that he can deliver it. And he's got all the technical abilities. I think there's a few, even in the documentary, and anyone that's known Ben White for years, they say he's one of the most his understanding of the game is really, really one of his best assets. That's why he can understand the role that he's got. I'm really enjoying what he's doing for us at the moment. It's quite scary how good he is becoming. And I'll be amazed if he doesn't go to the World Cup in the end. If Kyle Walker is out for a long time, I'd be amazed if he doesn't go. But the other flip side of it is if he doesn't go, he may not start. But a lot of these players will be fit for us when we do come back for the restart. It's the same for Martinelli. If he doesn't go to the Brazil squad for the World Cup, then we're saving him for January. The end of December games.
Mm-hmm.
But Ben White, he's part of that group of development. He's brilliant.
It just goes again. Go ahead, Sam.
Sorry, just to touch in a little bit further on Ben White. As MJ touched on, like in the All or Nothing series, you saw the sit down with Ben White and one of our coaches and said, your ability to learn and take on a new role is one of your biggest strengths. And you look at the way Ben White's playing now, you would think that he's been a right back for all of his career.
Mm-hmm.
And you think at Leeds, he was a defensive midfielder for a long time there. Centre back, then you've got him now as a right back. The versatility this guy's got is amazing, and it gives the squad something extra because, say, for example, Saliba needs a rest, Ben White come into the middle. If Partey, touch him, would he don't, goes down, then, why not give Ben White a try at defensive midfielder? He's very good with the ball at his feet. He's able to dominate players. He's quick across the ground. He's got that vision. So, given now the options that we have in centre back and also right back and whatnot, he could be an option to be the defensive midfielder to back up Partey or allow Lokonga to then go further up into the 8 to be a replacement for Xhaka, maybe. Like it that versatility gives us multiple options and gives the squad more options as to where people can go. So yeah, very much testament to Ben White. He's been very, very good this year.
And that elevation has a beneficial ripple effect. We saw against Liverpool, right? Zinchenko's not available. Tierney's coming off 90 minutes in Spurs game, or played a lot in the Spurs game, played a lot midweek. Obviously, he's still rehabbing. So Tomiyasu is able to be moved, and some eyebrows raised, but he went against Mo Salah for. Actually, Mo Salah left the pitch before Tomiyasu, who played 90. He wasn't fussed. So you're talking about depth at right back. Suddenly, you have a wealth of depth at the left back position as well.
Yeah. It's. Sorry, Sam, you go on.
No, go on.
Go
on.
I was going to say, Klopp would have trained, I think we've seen a few tweets of these, Klopp would have trained Salah and Trent to attack. He would have had a plan for Zinchenko. If Zinchenko comes in, Salah, you occupy the space that he leaves. If it's Tierney's going to bomb every now and then. Trent, you go and deal with that. Salah, you go on. But would he have planned for Tomiyasu? I think that was a real tactical... such a great move from Mikel Arteta. I was stunned when I first heard it. I was like, Tomiyasu, really? I thought maybe Tierney, because then you're effectively playing 4 centre backs in the back line. How does that work? How do we now approach the game from an attacking point of view? Because we haven't done that yet this season. So it was really nice to see the difference in approach going into the Liverpool game. But Tomiyasu, when he did throughout the 90 minutes, very comfortable, very, very comfortable. He is known to be good with both his left foot and his right foot. I guess the idea is if Salah's cutting in, Tomiyasu can cover that angle really, really comfortably. And he did finish the game with all the most duels, the tackles and everything. He was brilliant. And you could hear from the fans, they were cheering every single clearance, every single tackle that Tomiyasu was putting in. So he is greatly appreciated by a lot of the fan base. And there is a prediction that I did in the last piece of writing for the pod that I could probably see him in a potential centre-back position if Gabriel continues with his he's probably just going through a small phase where his judgment is kind of deceiving him a little bit. Maybe he comes in because Ben White isn't keeping the right back position his own. Who knows? But Tomiyasu, brilliant performance by him.
Yeah, and
And
just
even
also, sorry, just to
no.
touch on Tomiyasu as well. Like with him, I think that if we would have started with Kieran Tierney, like you've seen Salah against Tierney a couple of times now, and Salah's had Tierney on strings, and it's one of them ones where you just think, do you go again with this, or with Tomiyasu? He is literally a brick wall, and with Salah, you'd notice when Salah tried to attack Tomiyasu, it's like, okay, I'll try and do you down the outside, but Tomiyasu's got speed about him, and it's like he's just not going to do that. And then, as MJ said, if you want to come inside, he's already got the body shape, he's got the ankles on you to just poke that ball away, and then we're off on an attack. And then, he's able to push up. I know he's not like an attacking fullback, but he pushes up into half spaces to then allow, say, Martinelli to really bomb on. So again, it's that balance. So last year we wanted the inverted fullback at right back. With Tomiyasu, you kind of get that at left back also. So it was just, the whole game was just a joy to watch, to be honest.
Let's talk about Liverpool. We haven't really talked about Liverpool. I mean, I want to throw in. Let me just sprinkle in a little. Everybody's coming in. Rob Holding got his time midweek and scored a brilliant header. And it's just everybody, as we said, everybody's buying in. Mikel can't make a false move at this point, and knock on wood, hope to health maintains itself, because that's what's giving him this flexibility. He can manage a small knock. He can manage Zinchenko being out. He can manage Tierney being a little sore because he's still not 100% or not able to go week to week. So let's go to Liverpool. I mean, because again, the confidence coming out of Spurs going into a match against a club that's really kind of dominated them. It's not maybe. Liverpool's dominated them recently. We talked about it last year where Arsenal went at the Emirates, went kind of toe to toe with them for about 30 minutes, and they were just kind of outgunned in the middle of the match. And we said, okay, they've closed the gap, but they're not quite good enough. And this time, I don't think there's any doubt. Arsenal dispossesses them in the first 30 seconds, gets a run. All these little pieces that we've talked about, Saka drawing to just a brilliant pass, just up the cut between two defenders, one closing from the back, one of the central defenders gets it on Odegaard's foot, and he's got space. And gentlemen, just that pass to Martinelli between Trent and between Virgil was just sublime.
It was the best start that we could have hoped for. I think Liverpool's downfall for much of the season has been a slow start, and for us to get in the first minute, even I was amazed that I don't think many people predicted the first minute start to get that plan going. It was interesting after that how we approached the game. I would have thought we would have imposed our game a little bit more, but I think because we saw one of the long balls going over the top for Diaz, there might have been an intentional plan. Having rewatched the game, it looked quite intentional that we were going to drop back a bit and just close off the gaps a little bit so they don't play through us. That might have been intentional, having rewatched it. And when watching it live, I was thought, God, why can't we get the ball? It looked intentional. And in the 43rd minute, I think Ramsdale booted the ball up to Jesus on the left-hand side. He trapped it really well and he turned to Trent. And then all of a sudden, we're now running back towards Liverpool, and the players have remembered that we are still a threat going back behind him, and that swung the momentum. But it was a brilliant start, getting the first goal in the first minute. And there was a tweet going around today that there was some loophole in the VAR for Saka. I don't know if anyone caught that, if anyone saw that earlier. Yeah, I don't know what that was about. There's some sort of loophole in the VAR for Saka's position when he received. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't, to be honest. But I have seen people saying, "Well, Saka was offside," and I was like, "Well,
I thought it was just Liverpool fans sour grapes, because they really are grasping it. The handball that wasn't, and the offside that wasn't, and it's like, well, you were just, gentlemen, you were outplayed.
Yeah. That's what it boils down to. And I'm not being funny. Just touching on the Gabriel one. The ball come up and hit his chest in the stadium. I thought, oh, that's handball because obviously it's close proximity and he struck his hand. But watching replays of it, it's hit him in the chest, then bounced up onto his hand. So letter of the law, it's not a penalty. And even if it didn't, the proximity which that ball is rifled at his hand, he can't do nothing with it. So yeah, Liverpool just clutching on that. And then also I see even Ian Wright commenting on the Gabriel Jesus one, saying that wasn't a penalty, and saying that doesn't force him down. But like, I'm sorry, if you're getting to the ball first and then somebody's coming through your calf, you're gonna go down. And for me, yes, it is soft. But if that's going for you, you're screaming for it. And if it's against you, again, you're screaming at it, saying that it's not. It's just a part of the game at the moment. It's one of them ones where if it's going for you, it's going for you. And if it's not, tough, really.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I think that's a big thing for us as well, actually. Now I've mentioned that, is the luck aspect of it. You say you've got to create your own luck, which we have been doing. But I think some of the decisions have come our way in some of the games that we've had this year.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that part. But as he said, that penalty, soft or not, came at like a 2-3 minutes where Arsenal was banging the ball around their box, getting attempts. They tried to clear it. We get it, immediately put it back, immediately put it back, immediately put it back. So my thinking is, okay, if it didn't happen there, it was going to happen 30 or 45 seconds later, because we were just going to be relentless until the ball was either they put the ball in the goal or got the penalty. So, I mean, if it happened then, it happened then, or if it was going to happen a minute later, it was going to happen a minute later. But to me, it was pretty clear Arsenal was not going to relent until they took the lead again. They made the luck, as you said.
It's what I've loved about the team so far this season. It's kind of, we're going to go for it or we're going to lose it as one of those outcomes. And most of the times we've come out on top. I think the United game was probably the one where it probably went wrong from a tactical point of view. But most of the time we've got it right. And I think even there is that hypothetical, if we didn't get that penalty, we would have just gone on and maybe found another way. But I think it's the attitude before the penalty where we're just going to keep knocking on your door. And they took off. I think by the point the penalty came, they had already taken Salah off. I have to check that. But they were taking all their key men off. Yeah, right. So they're taking off their key men, and they must have been playing for a draw. I don't know what was going on there, because Jota came off later on as well.
Mm-hmm.
For Fabinho and so on. But yeah, it's that attitude now that we're having in these games, and the lack of fear that we touched on earlier, that we're just going to come at you. Like, we don't care who you are. And I think we showed a bit of respect to Liverpool as well. When we were watching Liverpool, I didn't feel like we were playing a team that's out of form. I think they did look dangerous. They did take their chances that came their way. I think the first one was kind of our own doing, but they still took their own. They still took the chance that fell for them. I think they'll be fine, Liverpool, for their own season. But for us, this is a huge win for our season and the mentality behind it as well.
All right, catching our breath. 5 matches in the Prem until the World Cup break. With the shuffling, City obviously moved until post World Cup, but 5. I won't say easy. None of them are. There are no easy matches, but 5 winnable matches. Even though Chelsea at Stamford Bridge is in that mix. Next match. Let's talk about this coming weekend. They're going to play Leeds. We've talked setup. We've talked about staying with a set lineup, staying with this, staying with that. But Mikel actually in these 2 matches actually did a little tinkering. Who's going out against Leeds? Let's start at left back. He's got Tomiyasu, he's got Zinchenko, he's got Tierney there now. How do you play it? How do you set up the back line? Either one of you. What do you think?
For me, I wouldn't change it, because Leeds do have some good options out in the wing. and in the wide areas.
So you would keep the Liverpool back four?
It's a real tough one because I'm really, really tossing it up between Tomiyasu and Tierney. With Shinchenko, I really wanted him to come back 100% fit. I wouldn't be chucking him into a Leeds game because Jesse Marsh has got them on some good form at the moment, and I think Leeds will pose their own difficulties. I wouldn't be disappointed if either Tomiyasu or Tierney started because I think in their own rights they both deserve to start. I know only one can, but I think given the choice, I'd probably put Tierney in base just the attacking aspect.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think I'm a believer in not changing the team too much. I think Tomiyasu was probably the more strategic for that game, but I wouldn't be too disappointed if he started again just to keep the winning team. But you're probably looking at just Tomiyasu for Tierney, because I think we will probably rest the same players or the same group of 8 to 9 players again against Glint on Thursday. So I don't see too many changes for Leeds. They'll be dangerous in their own way. That'll be another test, another little test for us, because I think they cover the ground quite a lot. I think they still have some of that Bielsa running, but with a bit more of a wise head to it. So that'll be an interesting matchup. I wouldn't change too much of the team there.
And you wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change anything up front, certainly. Because as we talked about this earlier, they're better, they're closer, but they haven't really blown up yet. And I'm still waiting for that. And it might, makes you think any week now, this could be the week. Although, respect Leeds, but Arsenal's going to go crazy on somebody very soon, I would think. If they can keep that attack intact.
Yeah, I think if there's going to be anyone, I think it might be Eddie for Jesus, potentially. But everyone else will probably be the same. I don't know. I can't see anyone else coming in. I'm going to predict the same team lineup, but if anyone's going to be a surprise, it's probably Eddie for Jesus. And even if that did happen, there would be I wouldn't be that worried at all. I'd be pretty comfortable with that. I think Eddie does deserve some minutes. And he's been really patient to get his minutes in the games so far this season. Probably a little unlucky to come in really late on in the games, because I think against Liverpool he came on 90th minute, or maybe a few minutes just before that. But that's probably the only other one if we're going to see any surprises, but most of the team will be the same, I think.
Any more changes you see, Sam? I mean, I can't. Anywhere else, maybe Vieira at some point getting more minutes.
Yeah, do you know?
That's the only other thing possibly see.
Sorry. Do you know what I think it is? What we're going to probably see with the Leeds game is that obviously the second string as it stands at the moment will probably get their minutes against Bilbao Glint on the Thursday, and then the main team will be as is against Leeds. But I feel, given the schedule that we've got coming up, I think that we might see some earlier substitutions because, then we've got the early game against PSV after that, I believe. But yeah, I think that will give some more minutes to the people on the bench. But I think that we'll probably try and wrap that Leeds game up early doors, so it gives us that flexibility to be able to make changes and still have that like for like, whilst giving people the minutes they deserve, really.
Yeah. Do we even need to venture predictions for Thursday? I mean, that was such an easy win. Same club now at their pitch, but Arsenal was just physically better, athletically better than that club. Seemed to kind of take their time in the second half once they got the 2-goal lead.
Yeah, I think for Thursday, it's a completely different game because we've got to then think about it's a plastic pitch as well, so we've got to
Is
manage.
it?
We've got to manage that. Um, not too sure what the altitude's like there, but yeah, I think given they've beaten some really good teams in the Europa League at their place, I don't think that it would be an easy game. I'd be happy if it was a 2-0, or even a one. Just come away with a 1-0, 0 injuries.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think the pitch is going to be that aspect that we need to be careful of there.
It's no injuries bit, isn't it? Because it's quite easy to get injured on a plastic pitch. I think that's the main thing. I think, yeah, you want to respect them enough that you don't want to take it too easy, but it should still be an easy win there. Hopefully, let's see.
All right, so going back to Leeds, oddly enough, Arsenal have done better away from the Emirates on the score sheet. I think all of their clean sheets are away from the Emirates, or maybe only one is at the Emirates this season. What do you put that down to? Just one of those things. I mean, it's.
Do you know what?
Go on.
Sorry, I think it's because we're a bit more disciplined when we're away. Because if you notice, when we're at home, we're a bit more gung ho.
Yeah,
But away,
not more freewheeling. Yep.
If we're away, we tend to be a bit more stricter in the way that we build up and attack. But yes, I don't know. Difficult one to answer that one, I think.
It is, yeah. There's definitely more. It's probably looking at more discipline. The Brentford game is probably the example of that, where we managed the second half really well. That's probably the most. That entire 90 minutes is probably the most disciplined we've had all season. It's a really interesting one, and that all of our clean sheets have come away from home. But it's probably, Sam was saying, it's just that element of gung ho, and we've been pegged back a couple of times against Villa and Fulham, so they've come to us and they've surprised us a bit. But we go to them and we just sort of shut them out early, and we've controlled it really well. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if the clean sheet came against Leeds. Yeah, interesting.
Well, let's jump into the prediction machine. Sam, you start. What will the result be?
I'm going for a 4-1.
MJ?
I will go clean sheets. That's a clean sheet against Spurs. Didn't happen. But I'll go clean sheet against Leeds, and I'll just go 3-0. Another 3-0 away from home.
You always take my score. I'll jump on the 3-0 bandwagon. But we have three goal margins here. Sam has us conceding a goal but scored 4. So, yeah, I think your assessment's kind of on. I think they'll be just a little bit more exacting on the road, and don't really have a feel whether they're going to do it early, whether they're going to do it late. But I do think they're going to do it. They're very confident. They have to be so confident now after these 2 wins. And this is a real chance for them. Just, they know at this point they can actually go into the World Cup break sitting on top of the league. I mean, who would have ventured that when they went to Palace to open the season? But here we are. It's a reality. They've made it a reality. So, any final words before we wrap up here for this episode?
No, I think the 2 games, Spurs and Liverpool, to come out 6 points out of those games, that's amazing. It really is. I think a lot of neutrals probably didn't see that coming. I think a lot of us, at the start of the season, you're probably hoping for 4 points, 3 points around that mark. 4 points definitely in the 2 home games. But before the Spurs game, I was looking at it as 6 points. and just because of the confidence and the belief we've got in the side. And that's proven. That's been proven now. It's fact that we were able to get over the line with these two games, but to come out with 6 points out of these two, that's brilliant. I know the pundits and the creators and the media and whatever, they keep moving the goalposts in terms of all these tests and challenges, but that's fine with us. I think we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. I don't mind them moving the goalposts every now and then.
No, I know what the goalpost is now. Go ahead, Sam.
Sorry, I think that's it though, isn't it? Is that we will quite happily plod along doing our own thing. They can move the goalposts as much as they want. We know the media's got an anti-Arsenal agenda, so we'll keep doing what we want to do. And I think if we can make it 9 out of 9 with Chelsea as well, I think that puts down a real big marker to everybody. And I know people will point to Man United, but that happens sometimes. But I think if we get the 9 out of 12 from say 4 of the big 6, including ourselves, then it's a massive improvement on last year. So, and again, it's these sort of points where we pick up off of these teams that enhance the top four hopes. It enhances a possible title. So yeah, it's exciting to see, and I just hope we can do it on the flip side as well on the away games, because that will really be a marker down.
All right, and we'll use that as a teaser for the next one. Again, we've had two huge matches to discuss. We really didn't have a chance to talk about rumors in the January window, which are starting to kind of bubble up. Some crazy, some a little bit more sober, and just the fact that having looked at other clubs in this calendar year, Arsenal is KSE's like third ace. We've seen the Rams won a Super Bowl, and they did it being very aggressive with late moves and free agent moves. We saw the Colorado Avalanche make 5 moves at their trade deadline, picked up players that helped them get their first championship. Active summer from Arsenal. I think there was a little bit of disappointment that there wasn't that last move, or maybe 2. Some people felt the club was short in the window, but being where they are, the longer they stay, especially I think if they go in, even if let's say they drop points somewhere along the way and they go in and they're maybe 2 points behind City rather than 1 point ahead of them, as long as they're within reach of City and they have a top 4 spot firmly in their hand, I am confident, I'm 100% confident, given what we've seen from the parent club, that they're going to do something very, very significant in the January window. And then well, that's grist for the next pod. So we're running a little long here, but again, a lot of good Arsenal news to talk about. I want to thank all of you out there for joining us here on the pod. You can find us online at our website at thedailygooner.com. On Twitter, you see all our handles beneath our names, and we have the site Twitter at DailyGoonerPod. So to wrap up, again, another joyful podcast for Sam in London, for MJ in London. I'm Raphael in Austin. We bid all of you a good afternoon, or wherever you are, a good evening. We'll be back next week with more, I am sure, more compelling Arsenal news. Good night.